All right, we're live.
Hello and welcome to our Facebook Live session. Today in January, I just want to first and foremost say Happy New Year. I know that you all had wonderful holidays and we are now looking forward to 2023. So thank you for joining us for this Facebook Live session. Here I have Deputy City Manager Corey Falls. Corey?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me today, Mayor. Appreciate to be here, and I reiterate Happy New Year, everyone.
Well, and thank you for joining us. We've got a lot of things that we're going to be working on in 2023, but we've got one of the most important things that we've seen in a number of years, and that is our Gresham Public Safety Levy. That is something that is, I think, everybody in our community is really, I think, very motivated to see happen within our community, and so it's a very important item. Let's talk about a little bit of the background about how we got here, and something that has moved us to where we are today in regards to public safety. And so that's one of your responsibilities as the Deputy City Manager is public safety. That includes both police and fire. So we have to kind of go back a little bit to many years ago. You know, as we started to look at some of the challenges that we were seeing early in our communities as some of the crime numbers were starting to tick up. We've actually looked at a couple of different levies over the years as we look to address public safety. Now, we're sitting here, just to let you know, folks, we are sitting here at the Rockwood Public Safety Building. So this is something that was built a number of years ago, and it was built to help actually get our public safety folks out into the community, build those community relationships so that we could do better community policing and more community policing. Talk to us about the concept of community policing.
Well, community policing is working with our community to mostly solve problems. A lot of times when you think about solving problems in a community, whether it's crime, whether it's a social issue, homelessness, some of the best answers come from your community members that are out there, or your community-based organizations who are working with different groups or impacted community members. So our goal, certainly as a police department and city, is to work with our community to solve problems, to help reduce crime and problems in everybody's neighborhood.
So would you say, I mean, many times we think about law enforcement, and we think about it somewhat being reactive, both law enforcement and especially in the concept of our fire response. It tends to be reactive, but community policing kind of transforms that concept of reaction to proaction, and to being proactive about building those relationships, making sure that we're processing things in a way that we can essentially be ahead of some of the things that may happen and really intervene sometimes before something bad takes place by building those relationships. Would that be a good example of components of community policing?
That'd be a great example, and we're tied to 911 sometimes and just reacting to that radio going off and sending us somewhere. But there's also a component of just understanding some of the impacts that's happening in your community and doing exactly what you said, proactively looking at what that next problem could be, who that community member that's impacted, what their needs are, and proactively getting out there and working to solve some of those problems.
And so that proaction is part of that prevention piece of it. Now, again, we're sitting here at the Rockwood Public Safety Building. We don't have as many services here currently. Why is that?
That's correct. As you said, this public safety building was built about 10 years ago for the community of Rockwood, so we could get out there. We've had some staffing challenges over the last year where we've lost a lot of our specialty assignments. A lot of those specialty assignments were resourced out of this facility. It was also used where patrol officers could come in and respond quicker to the community. And we've lost some of those resources. So our goal is to certainly work to get this staff back up, get in a manner where we have the specialty assignments that can work out of here in addition to our patrol officers.
So some community members here that we've cut back on some of the specialty assignments. We currently aren't staffing our community volunteer policing program, and they think that's a concept of defunding police or law enforcement, and that's not correct. I mean, we have actually delivered the highest funding level in Gresham's history over the last few years, primarily because our American Recovery Plan Act, ARPA funds, have allowed us to do that. But really, it's about staffing.
Yeah.
And this is an issue that's happening all across the country. We've seen police departments shrink in size during the pandemic, for a very number of reasons. And so we're a victim of that. We've seen our police department sizes shrink. And so that's really been at the heart of why we've had to pull back on those specialties. Is that a good kind of summation of what we've experienced as a city?
Absolutely, and I'm really proud to say that we have not defunded the police department
Absolutely
here in the city
not.
of Gresham, and we ran into some struggles a few years back. In 2019, we had 8 positions that were vacant positions that were eliminated from the police department budget, and then of course a year later the pandemic hits, which leads us into a different world, and with the social justice movement, a lot of things that happened, it impacted our employees, and we're starting to build back up. And I feel happy about the direction we're in with doing that.
And so now where we sit is we sit at about 127 sworn officer positions. We just got done with a substantial multi-year study. Barry Dunn, a national law enforcement consultancy, came and gave us some numbers. And they have suggested that we'd be somewhere in the 150 range. Is that correct?
Yes.
About the 150 range. You just said that prior to the pandemic, we actually had to reduce numbers. And that was all across the city. That just some folks will hear that potentially that was just in our law enforcement, but it's all across the city that we had these reductions. And we since have added many of those positions back both on the non-sworn side. And we're also adding our community safety specialists. And those are unarmed folks who can assist our incredible law enforcement folks that are sworn officers in doing some of those investigations and things like that. Is that a good description of what we're looking at with those additional unsworn positions?
Absolutely, and some of the benefits to our unsworn positions is we can get them hired and working quicker than a sworn police officer, which can take up to 18 months. And some of the work that we'll be having some of our community service specialists do will be a huge support role to some of our police officer investigations to take some of that work off so they can focus on our crime matters and some of our more high priority calls.
So some folks may ask, with only 127 officers. Barry Dunn came back and said we should be closer to 150. Historically, we've heard some of those numbers thrown around in prior studies. And that has been because as a city, we haven't actually fully funded, our city from a financial perspective. We won't go into the details of kind of why we're here from a financial perspective, but to say that we've had some measures, Measure 5 and Measure 50, that have absolutely limited, I will survive, absolutely limited our ability to raise the correct revenues in comparison to like-sized cities. And I've said this numerous times, our general fund, which is our flexible amount of money that we can spend within the city, our general fund totals about $90 million. We are 114,000 people. The city of Hillsborough, a comparison city that we very often use, they have about 108,000 people. Their general fund is almost $140 million. Beaverton has a general fund equivalent of about the same, about 140 million, and they have about 97,000 people. So we're the largest of the 3 cities here in the metro region that are the suburbs, but yet our general fund budget is roughly 50% less than our sister cities. For various reasons. And so that's part of the reason why we're here today is that we haven't made the investments in our city from a financial perspective that we could and should, which has limited us in our ability to bring on the number of police officers and firefighters that we need to ensure that we're keeping our communities safe. And go ahead.
In that general fund, Mayor, I think it's important to note too that sometimes people question, but 90% of that goes to police and fire.
Yeah, so in 90% of our of our general fund goes to police and fire. Thank you very much. So 90% of our general fund goes to police and fire. If we look at either Hillsborough or Beaverton, roughly 50% of their general fund goes to police and fire. So it's not that we're overspending on police and fire. That's not even close to the concept. It's because our overall bucket of funds isn't large enough relative to a full service city that we are. And so that's part of the biggest challenge that we face as a city, is really having the full funding across the city of Gresham to ensure we're able to deliver the services to our great community members. And that leads us to the levy. This levy really is focused on our core challenges that we face, making sure that we fund police effectively, fire effectively, and then homeless services. That's another key area that we are impacted and our community members are impacted by, and we're looking at doing some pilot programs within our homeless services area. And so this levy would allow us to ensure that we're properly staffed in our key areas, ensure that we aren't going to experience additional layoffs, and then allow us to do some of these pilot programs so that we can move community safety forward. Is that kind of, again, a good summary of what we're looking at in regards to the challenges that we're facing within our public safety areas?
It is, and I think a key point to this is sustainability, getting to a point to where our resources are sustainable for our community members and our police department, our firefighters, our homeless services, to where this is resolved, more long term.
Mm-hmm. So when you say more long term, so ultimately, the city council, with great input from our community, we looked at a process called Imagine Gresham, which gave us a lot of great ideas, a lot of vision of where they'd like the city go, where we would like to see the city go. Then we also did a strategic plan, which is really the implementation, some of the action items, some of the focal points of that bigger Imagine Gresham process gets boiled down and drilled down into a strategic plan. Then from there, we have to move to the strategic roadmap. We have to understand how we're going to be able to move forward on all of these things that our folks, our incredible community members, have been requesting and asking us for. But a foundational piece of this is public safety. And during the pandemic, we saw public safety challenges all across the country. Not just here in Gresham, not just here in the Portland metro region, but all across the country we saw the challenges. And now we're responding to that. We're getting back to some of the core book of work that we weren't able to necessarily do during the pandemic, like the community policing that we talked about earlier. We need to expand those types of programs and having those additional opportunities to do that. Having the additional personnel, having the additional police officers. Now we're at 127 now. Barry Dunn, I mentioned it earlier, has said we need to be close to 150. We've heard that number before. You also said that there were some open positions at one point. Is it something that as a city we probably need to be looking at what some folks in the industry call overhiring? How long does it take for us to get a brand new police officer hired and then all the way through training?
It can take upwards, Mayor, to 18 months. And the reason why that the process is so long is there's a lot of preliminary work that has to be done when you hire a new police officer. When they go through the interview process and are selected, they need to have a full background check. They need to have a psychological test. They need to have a medical test, which this is all important for community members because they want somebody that is safe and healthy and sane because we have to handle some of the worst problems that are out there. And that can take anywhere from 2 to 4 months to kind of get that background information completed, depending on how in depth that is. Then we send them to the state of Oregon's Police Academy, which is 16 weeks long, and they're away from our city department for that time, and they're getting trained in all aspects of how to be a police officer. Once that's complete and they graduate, they come back to our police department, and they're with a training officer, a series of training officers, probably for another 16 weeks rotating through, taking what they learned in the police academy to a practical approach with a senior training officer to train them through that. Once they complete that, then they're able to patrol on their own or be out on their own with some high level oversight from the supervisor. So that whole process takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And in addition to that, sometimes there's not always an academy class available. So that can elongate the program also. Because just because we hire somebody and they get through all that background and all that, complete all that testing, that doesn't mean that the next day they start the police academy. That means we wait until the next academy is open, and that could be sometimes several months away.
So really, I mean, when we're thinking about ensuring that we've got the right staff, we've got to be thinking years in advance.
Yes.
So if we wanted to be fully staffed today, we would have had to have been, again, in some of the terminology within the industry, overhiring, back in 2018, 2019, but the budget wasn't there. We didn't have the finances to be able to accomplish this overhiring solution.
And it's interesting when we talk about fully staffing, that doesn't always mean that if you consider our 127 police officers, on paper that may be fully staffed, but that may not be everybody working also. Industry standing law enforcement, and we looked at this number for the city of Gresham about a year ago. We run about a 3 to 5% attrition rate. So we're always at a vacancy rate. So to your point exactly, when you're always seemingly behind the curve and you have long hiring processes, having the ability to overhire gets you closer to being fully staffed.
But you got to have the budget for that. And that's where, we've been challenged for a long time, is having the ability and opportunity to have a fully staffed. And when we talk about that 127 historically and currently is well below the number that we've been told that we should be at from an activity standpoint.
Yes.
So when we look at like-size cities and like-size municipalities, we're quite a bit under, what other cities are seeing as far as, I don't want to say the police per thousand number. That's a metric that's used quite readily, but it's the police activity, and so it's almost like police per incident, which we have to respond to what we're seeing here in our community. And so for many years, we've been challenged by this. And at this point, we're really looking forward to move forward with the levy to help us solve one of our biggest challenges that we're facing as a community. And it's both now and then well into the future is what we're trying to prepare for, to make sure we've got our police, we've got our fire, we've got our homeless services all working together. Because sometimes, and I think some of the things that we have the ability to apply towards some of our challenges is the fact that we can think creatively. And I think our GPOA, our Gresham Police Officers Association, is aligned with us to start thinking creatively about how we solve some of the challenges, knowing that there's going to be some time. If it's 18 months to get new police officers out on the streets, how do we ensure that we can fill those gaps? And we're doing that similar to what you said. We've got the concept of the community safety specialist, and potentially we can bring those on sooner. And then also those can be tracks right into law enforcement. So we find great folks there. We can potentially move them into law enforcement. It can be a pathway to long-term stability within their careers.
We have a comment that I just wanted to.
Yes, we have a comment.
Well, we have two now. So Tammy is mentioning that we pay lots of taxes as homeowners. We need to deal with crime. Also, officers for school safety.
Excellent. Thank you. You mentioned a couple of things, and we are again I'll let Deputy Senior Manager Corey reference the school safety because we are certainly very interested in working with our schools and those solutions. I'll touch base a little bit on the property tax and the real estate tax. All homeowners here. living in Gresham, paying the taxes. And certainly, as we look at the real estate taxes, that monthly bill comes, or that annual bill comes in, it's sometimes you look at it a double take. But understanding those investments, understanding where those investments go, a vast number of our tax dollar actually doesn't sit in our city. Our city gets roughly just over about $3, a little over $3. That comes to the city of Gresham out of the $15 cap that's placed per thousand. So we pay up to $15 per thousand into our real estate taxes. Much of that goes to our schools, which it should. You just mentioned, Tammy, you just mentioned schools and school safety and resource officers. About $5 of our $15 tax goes to schools, which includes Mount Hood Community College. About $5, a little over $5 goes to Multnomah County. And then, like I said, just over $3 goes to the city of Gresham. And so that's a little bit of kind of the misunderstanding. When we pay those tax bills, many times we think a vast majority of that is going to the city of Gresham, but actually as a municipality, Gresham gets the smallest slice of what we pay on an annual basis. And so, yeah, that can be sometimes a challenge to appreciate what portion of that. But we're funding through our property tax a lot of different types of solutions within the region, and some of those goes to the port, some of it goes to Metro, some of it breaks down to other things, parks, and those types of things are really where that whole piece goes. But in the city of Gresham, we're just over $3 per thousand, and so we really need to make sure we're also funding our current city and our operations and making the investments here. School resources.
Yeah, I'd like to address Tammy's comment about crime and school resources. Mm-hmm. This is something that's sensitive to me because I've formerly had a child in a Gresham school, so safety in school is very important to me. Number one, we need the resources to have adequate patrol staffing. If we have adequate patrol staffing, then we can start having extracurricular positions, put them in schools, put them into detectives, other specialty assignments. So we want to work, number one, with getting our patrol staffing up to speed. And yes, I agree. And then we want to have safe schools, whether that's school resource officers or working within the greater Multnomah County, because I know there's been different collaborations with Multnomah County and in different schools with school resource officers that we want to continue.
We have an additional comment. How can citizens help the city and Gresham Police Department with safety?
That is a great question. I will kick off a response, and then, of course, you can chime in. Much of what we need to do as citizens is ensure that we're taking the opportunity to, in some instances, look at the ways that we can do a better job of securing, different types of valuables and things like that. When we think about car thefts, well, one of the things about car thefts, if we're able to do things like the club, those types of things that really deter folks, because many times, especially with theft, it's a crime of opportunity. And so they see something quick. If we leave something on our seat in our car that seems to be valuable, they smash and grab, and those types of things. So what we can do is we can start to take a keen eye towards making sure that we are part of the safety solution. And I know it seems coy, but one of the comments is see something, say something. That's that. I know it sounds pretty cliche, but that is really a way that we can keep ourselves and neighbors safe. If we see something that seems to be out of place, we want to say something. And then one of the other key things is to ensure, that we are look on the lookout for things that might be happening within and around our neighborhoods, ensuring that we're helping out with the built environment. If shrubs are a little bit on the high side, let's make sure we cut those back so that we can see if there's something that could be better lit. Those are the types of things that we want to do to be more prepared and to assist our law enforcement. And then if you see a law enforcement person, just give them a big thank you. Many times that could be something that really gives them a vote of confidence and a lift, just to hear them say, we value your contribution to the community. We support you. Corey?
I like this question because obviously this community member is involved and because they're making a comment and they're listening to a couple of guys like us. That's what I tell people initially is get involved. I know it's not that fun always to show up to a council meeting or to know what's happening or follow us on our social media, but get involved and pay attention to what's going on. There's a lot of opportunities out there that we're going to need going out for a levy. We're going to need that support. We're going to need those types of things. So get involved in that. The second thing I would say, I think this question alludes to what we opened up with community policing, is work collectively. If you exactly what you said, if you see something, say something, and let the police department know some of these problems. I know people have been concerned in the past whether they should call 911 or not. Never let that be a concern. If you're concerned about something, call 911 and go through the process of letting us try to respond and get some help.
And you just mentioned something, Corey, that I'm guilty of, and that's not reporting.
Yeah.
I had something happen to some of my a piece of property that I have, my motorcycle. Its ignition was drilled, and I didn't report it because I was like, I don't want to take the time. And Chief Goldberg said, you need to report,
yes,
and we need to make sure that we're capturing everything that's going on in our community. So I didn't do my part to support the effort, so that I'm letting them know so that we can have this information, we can track it. So all of those things collectively are really what helps our community. And when I didn't mention it, but I remember when I first moved to Portland, we had something that we left. We had something that we left on the seat of the car. Smash and grab. They smashed the window and took it. And from that moment, I no longer leave anything valuable in plain sight within my vehicle.
Yes.
And so those are the types of things that, as community members, the less we have to send out a police officer to respond to a smash and grab type situation, the more we can focus that attention on the things that are really critical within our community. And so you asked a great question, greatly appreciated. Those are some of the tips and the hints that we have, and our police officers have also shared some of those tips and hints with us. I believe during the holidays we actually had a page on our website that actually gave some of those hints. I'm not sure if it's still up, but I'm sure if you reach out, we can get you additional information on how to assist. And again, getting involved. Neighborhood associations, they do a really good job of keeping people connected and informed. So if you're not reaching out to your neighborhood association, do that. I think they can help you get connected and be more proactive about how you can help out in your community.
We've had a couple other comments that I just want to acknowledge. I'm not sure if we have enough time to dive into them, so maybe we can coordinate on the answers and I can get back to people. But Todd did comment on the safety for traffic, which I believe you both have been in communication with them over that. Tammy also mentioned when planning housing, quit cramming mass housing in areas. The school crosswalks not being lit almost caused a disaster the other day. And we should reach out to Portland's mayor to address the signage that keeps appearing on apartment buildings. Sorry, I can't see the rest of that comment. Oh, wait. Apartment buildings on Stark, right before 174th, that says steel, gas, and camera shop.
So, yeah, I mean, certainly when you touch base on, we just kind of ran through a lot of those comments. We're certainly, looking at all the opportunities to create better traffic safety. Absolutely. That's certainly being studied, certainly being worked with, both at the local level and at the state level, which we have to actually have state approval from the legislature to do some of the things that are being referenced there. We absolutely are making sure that we're looking at ways that we can improve safety throughout our entire community, especially if we've got school crosswalks that need any attention. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Let us know where those areas are so that we can address them. My Gresham app is a perfect place to put that so that we can get out there and find out what the issue is. If there's an unlit school crosswalk, for sure, we want to get that taken care of. And it's interesting as we talk about space and place planning with density and all of those things. That's a whole nother topic that Tammy, maybe that's another Facebook Live that's going to be coming up. We can talk about a great point. We can talk about what it looks like from a community planning standpoint and the density that's going in with our housing all across the community.
And we do meet once a month as a city component, whether it's with various city departments, where we have people from the police department and people from DES, so we talk about roads and different things. So this can be something that if there is a certain crosswalk or area, we can bring this up in one of our strategic meetings to see if there's some efforts to be made to improve the lighting of the crosswalk situations, because we do work and collaborate cross-department in the city.
Yeah, we just recently just turned on speed signs down at 191st, just straight down 181st. Just down south. So those are the types of things we're putting in to assist in addressing traffic and those types of things to make our community safer. With that, I want to thank all of you for dropping in. Thank you for the comments. Todd, Tammy, greatly appreciate your engagement, your involvement. We'll continue the conversation as we go forward. Corey, I want to thank you for the time. Yes. Greatly appreciate your input and insight. Folks, I just want to encourage you to, as we move forward with the levy, make sure that you step up. One of the best ways to help out our law enforcement, our fire department, ensuring our homeless services have the funding they need, is to be engaged in this process. Talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors. Let's get this levy passed as we begin to fund our city and make the right investments and make Gresham a great place to live. So thank you. We look forward to coming back next month with Facebook Live.